Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Nemetschek webinar, a new epoch, adapt AI, transform architecture. So today is the very first episode of our new AI webinar series, following our exciting announcement about our new artificial intelligence layer, and which you'll be able to see more on our AI community on Instagram. So with me here today, we have Julian Geiger, our Vice President and Head of AI Products and Transformation at Nemetschek Group, who is bringing a lot of experience in transforming industry through technology, including his stays at Google, Boston Consulting Group, and BMW. Next, we have Martin Kiss, Chief Product Officer at Graphisoft, who is leading the product strategy for ArchiCAD, DDS-CAD, BIM Cloud, and BIMX. He has 15 years of expertise in aligning innovative solutions with customer needs in the AEC space. And finally, we have our guest speaker, Pierre Sonot. Pierre is an architect and an urban designer with an international career spanning Toulouse, Paris, and London. He grew up in Scotland and Ivory Coast, and he combines a unique perspective with his expertise in open BIM and AI, making him a very sought-after speaker at global events. So let's dive in. First, I have a question to Martin. As a service provider in the industry, how do you see AI transforming the collaboration between architects and clients, especially in the early stage of design? What development are you seeing in the area?
Yeah, thank you very much for the questions. It's a very interesting area that we see that part of the architecture design process is sort of so-called prototyping, when you go through a high number of iterations to find the right solution. And many of that work is internal to the architect's office, that you work with alone or with your colleagues to validate various options. But many of that is part of the client communication, that here are all the variations I came up with and help me find the right one. And in this second one, we found AI to be a tremendous help, because it can, for example, through AI-based visualization, speed up that whole process. So Wanner, thank you very much for showing that picture. So what you can see here is on the upper left side, there is an interior space. This is designed by an architect. So that's the core 3D model that you developed. And then, for example, together with your client, find the right surfaces, materials to be used through an AI generation, just prompting that make the kitchen cabinet white or black, reflective, non-reflective, can very quickly get you to a point where you have a decision on the direction where you want to go. And of course, then with traditional BIM tools, you will detail that design and develop it further. But the time needed for that iteration is very quick, and it's also very entertaining. So I think this is a good example of using a very generic AI solution to speed up client communication.
Thank you, Martin. And this is a very good example of how technology is helping the designers to engage with AI and technology. So speaking of technology, Julian, as a service provider again, how are your tools designed to complement rather than replacing human decision-making, especially in architectural and construction workflow? Do you think AI will take over like certain responsibility, or is it going to be serving as a tool to enhance creativity and technical skills?
Yeah, thank you, Vanna, for the question. I think it's not really a question of or, right? It's more and, right? So we probably will see AI do both. It will augment our capabilities to a very big degree, but at the same time also replace us in certain tasks, right? And the way we bring in AI across the whole Nemetschek group, whether that's in Graphisoft or in any other brands, is that we focus on what the user really needs, right? And that means that we have a couple of areas how AI will actually help us, right? First of one is augmenting our creativity, bringing the creativity to the next level. Think about the AI visualizer that Martin just talked about. That really helps to come up with entirely new ideas and express yourself much better and have a very different outcome in terms of designs going forward. The second area is really up-leveling and augmenting our quality of work, right? So this is about thinking about having maybe a co-creator that works alongside you and helps you make better decisions in the design phase, adhere to standards, or even just optimize your building for sustainability. All that is sort of up-leveling what you do in terms of work quality. And then the third area is really replacing humans where it matters, right? And that matters in terms of non-productive, repetitive, tedious tasks that really distract our users from the value add parts, the core part of their work, the essential and productive parts of the day, right? These kind of distracting non-value add tasks, we want to automate that as much as possible with AI and reduce the waste that is occurring in our users' days. Nobody really became an architect to, for example, focus on the details of the documentation, right? It's all about creativity and vision and direction setting for customers, and not so much about that sort of like tedious task element. And we want to free the user from that and enable the user to focus on that essence of what an architect, for example, is. The same thing applies obviously to all the other value chain steps in our portfolio.
Okay, so on the service provider side, Martin and Julian both agreed that AI is helping the designers to achieve their goal and become better. So what about Pierre? In what ways do you think we can balance in terms of creativity intuition as a designer with AI-driven data and analytic in the design and construction process?
Thank you, Vanier, Julian and Martin, and good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be there and to be part of a discussion with such a hot topic still. Yes, we think, so as we are a group of architects, engineers, technologists, so we like to talk now about sort of design disciplines, and we feel that there is a common approach between all of them. And in terms of how AI can help us with the sort of creative process, we think that there is two levels of complexity. There is one where we hope that AI can help us in a very generic way. So with climatic data, specific building regulation, programs for building, which are problems that all architects and designers are facing. Sometimes we can call boring tasks. So we hope that AI can help us at a very generic level, and we feel that we all need the same type of help. So that is really an aspect of AI we really look for. And there is another one, which is probably more complex, is how AI can be adaptable, how AI can help us with our own creative process. And we feel that there is no two similar creative processes between designers. Everyone has a different way to tackle a project. That's why, for example, what Martin shown with the AI visualizer is very interesting, because it's a very good example on how you can take a more generic AI approach with his AI visualizer, but make it your own to suit your own creative process. So we feel that these are the two ways where we can work on to really help with these two type of tasks, which will really enhance the creativity, because we're going to talk about it later. But the idea is to free the designer from all these sort of peripheral tasks for which, as Julian said, we haven't been trained at school. Certainly not at architecture school. I can't talk for engineers for sure, but at architecture school, we have been taught to be creative, to focus on the design, and we have never been prepared to have to spend time on all these peripheral tasks, which can be really hindering the productivity and the efficiency of designers and certainly of architects.
Thank you, Pierre. So you spoke about problem facing. Like I imagine there are more like challenges in the industry right now. But what do you think? In what way is AI challenging the long-held principles of architectural and engineering design? Like, are we forcing to redefine what is good design? Let's say sustainability or efficiency.
Yes, it's exactly the case, because AI will help us really to redefine good design, but mainly to spend time on the design, to go back to what is the core of our job and to what is really the core we can bring to society as a whole. It's spending time on design, because it's not that we forgotten what good design is, but we probably don't have enough time to spend on design to make it good. So good design is really hindered by negative impacts of tasks which are repetitive or prone for human errors, for example, because we can spend a lot of time trying to figure out why there is a mistake. So using a layer of AI, as I think Julian and Nemetschek AI presented in the keynote is very interesting, because it's really something which will be more like a companion, something which will work with us to help as part of the team. I think we'll touch on that later on as well, on how AI is likely to evolve. But if we have it right, we have that layer helping us, again, with the peripheral tasks, we can focus on design, we can focus on the real good impact we can have on the AECO industry and on the generations to come.
Thank you, Pierre. So when you were talking about technology, it brings me back to Martin. So again, as a service provider, what is the approach as like to drive innovation and research in AI for architecture? Can you share how new technologies are being developed to meet the needs that Pierre mentioned that designers are having right now? Martin, you're on mute.
Yeah, thank you very much for the reminder. Yeah, and also for the question. So innovation is about people. So while we are talking about AI, it is really equipping ourselves, our colleagues, and the drivers of this industry with the right knowledge to utilize technology for the outcomes we want to have in building design, architecture, and so on. And for example, at Graphisoft, we have now many years old sort of tradition. We keep internally very strict ourselves to what we call GRID, Graphisoft Innovation Days. And this is a bottom-up innovation format that twice a year, any of our colleagues can spend a week with any innovative projects that they want to do. And typically they line up into teams where usually there is somebody business facing, somebody with technical skills, and then they come up with an idea that they execute and present, and then we can grade these, decide to put these on our roadmap, or decide to recommend to continue further. So giving that very democratic space that anyone can contribute, we saw a tremendous amount of projects coming up, which you see, for example, in our product, many of the functionalities that we delivered over the past years are coming of that. And in addition to that, there is also the training and the learning approach. And that's where sort of governance also comes in. So both on the sort of top level of the company and together with Julia and the team on the Nemetschek group level, we are creating this umbrella to make sure that we can allocate the right resources to the right areas and also set a direction that then we can all follow. So sort of summarizing this on a Graphisoft level, our example is heavy bottom-up innovation paired with the right governance to enable our colleagues to work in new ways.
Thank you, Martin. You have mentioned something very important. Innovation is about people. So Julian, going back to you, what about the designers? What new skills do you suggest them to focus on to work more effectively with AI?
Thanks, Vanna. That's a very good question, right? And I think as AI now expands into pretty much all areas of our lives, we are all, challenged to learn how to work with AI very quickly, right? And that's sort of what we need to do as architects as well. And I would start first with maybe understanding AI in the right way, right? There's a lot of people that think about AI like a human being, right? And then you get disappointed by some of the things it can or cannot do. What I think you should, treat AI like is sort of like an alien intelligence, right? Not in the sense that we got that from outer space, but we really created it ourselves, right? And as an alien intelligence, it's a non-human form of intelligence. That means that you can work with it, but don't expect it exactly to perform like a human, right? It will be superhumanly capable in many areas beyond what any human could do. But at the same time, it's shockingly and surprisingly bad at some basic areas where every human, every child would succeed in, right? So it's very important that you learn to know the difference where AI is capable, where AI is mediocre, and where AI is just total garbage, right? To say that, right? So it's very important to get that intuition, right? And how do you develop that intuition? That's the second point, right? You need to practice. You need to practice a lot. And you need to start right now. If you are not working with AI tools today, I would really encourage you to, right after this webinar, sign up for like one of the tools, ChatGPT, Perplexity, or whatever it is, right? And start using it. You'll find that you get better over time very quickly. That's very important. And I personally set myself a ground rule, which I can just recommend to always invite AI to the table. It means basically whatever you do, whatever project you're working on, whether it's personal or for business, try to find an AI tool online, and you'll be surprised what you can find when you just Google it. Find an AI tool that can help you with whatever you want to do and test it. See how far you can go. Experiment with it, and you'll learn where AI currently is meeting its limits. And that brings me to the third point, is those limits are moving fast, right? So 2 years ago, 3 years ago, none of this conversation would even have happened, right? But we're here today, and everybody is trying to wrap their heads around what is possible with AI already. And that's changing basically on a weekly and monthly basis. So even if you have a use case that today doesn't look feasible, check back in 3 months or 2 months even, or 1 month, and then you might be quite surprised at how far advanced the tools have gotten, right? It's not always about the AI model being improved. It's also often about integrating the AI models that we have in workflows so the output makes sense, right? And there's tons of companies right now going really hard at this problem in any kind of industry. So the speed is really, really incredible. So you have to stay up to date. And the last point here, really for your job, right? As we see AI now coming in and augmenting your capabilities, but also replacing some of the tedious tasks that you're doing, you can rethink a little bit of how you want to approach your job going forward, right? There is a lot of focus on the creative vision now, right? The direction setting for your projects. And I think also very importantly, the customer empathy aspect. I think you can be some sort of like the human translation layer, because most customers, and I would be one of you potentially if I ever build a house, right? I don't know how to express myself properly, right? I don't know the language of the architects, right? I don't know how to express what I want in terms that can be built, right? And you're the one that can come into that void and work with the customers to really tease out all their explicit and the implicit requirements that your customers have and bring that to life, right? That's the big value I think you can add beyond everything else you're still doing with the design, right? So that's, I think, is going to be a very important focus area for the future.
Thank you, Julian. Those are really good tips, and I think I hope you guys are taking notes. So during the webinar, we also mentioned a few challenges and trends like sustainability and also, of course, the new way of working happening around the world. So Pierre and Martin, going back to you guys, how can designers shift their mindset to see AI as a collaborative partner rather than a threat to their profession? What advice do you have for those who are still hesitating about AI adoption? So maybe Pierre, you can go first.
Yes, thank you. And I think Julian explained it really well in a way that we need to define and understand what AI is. And what we recommend every time is to step back and realize that we have been using a form of AI for a very long time in our workflows. I mean, when you start by using a calculator, for example, in a way you are using AI, you are using a machine which can perform a task faster than a human being, but you will still check and you will still work with it. So I think it's really important to keep that in mind, to step back and to see the AI as a tool for now, but a tool which is going to evolve. And that is a complexity, because it's the same type of revolution as when we went from hand drawing to 2D drawing, 2D CAD, and then parametric CAD, and then BIM, and so on. However, for BIM, for example, we had 20 years to get prepared. With AI, we probably don't even have 20 months or 20 weeks. We have to jump, as Julian said, into the train of AI fairly quickly, try to do it gradually. But we feel, although, to be able to feel more comfortable, there is probably a sort of frame we can put around AI. And yes, I'm an architect by training, but we are focusing as a company more on BIM workflows now and open BIM workflows. And we feel that building information modeling or information management, as we prefer, because it's about data, can be the framework within AI can help and can be in a way controlled and can be linked to the way we are already working with. So it's very important, I think, and that will be my last point for that question, to try to attach AI to our current way of working, to not think that it will be a revolution which will change everything overnight. We have a way of working. It works for us. AI, and again, sorry, Julian, I'll quote you and Nemetschek, it's a layer. We start with a layer which goes over our current way of working, and we evolve together. The key thing is to remember that it will evolve quickly and way quicker probably than other transformation of the AECO industry previously.
Thank you, Pierre. And Martin, what do you think?
Yeah, thanks, Pierre. So I would just extend Pierre a little bit. So adopting any new technology is comes with sort of a fear, and the fear is natural. It's unknown, uncharted territories. And in a human history, there were many of those. Some of them were huge scale, like my example is the Industrial Revolution, that before that, most of us, humanity, were, committed to architecture, food production, because we needed that. And through the Industrial Revolution, we had means to do that far more automatically. So the rest of the humanity who is not tied to that part of our life can do different things. And I think that's an ultimate promise in any new technologies. It's not going to make us humans obsolete. It will enable us to do things that we don't have time or resources now. And that's really why actually we want to do this. And to come over the fear of this change, it's through experimentation and training. So I think now for all of us, is the key thing is to learn more about, experiment, and see how we can apply AI tools to our outcome. And it can be bookkeeping, it can be creative imagination, task automation. No architects ever. So I used to be an intern in architecture. Will ask that, hey, I want to do the window consignations. Nobody enjoys sort of a given task set. So you will not rebel against this, but of course, then you will be able to do different things, which requires a different tool set. Yeah.
Thank you, Pierre and Martin. And so we don't have a question in the chat right now, but we've got some questions on our Instagram recently. So let me ask you this. How do you envision the relationship between AI and architects or designers evolving in the coming decades? Let's say for the future 10 years. Maybe Julian, you can take this quickly.
Yeah, I think there's sort of a bigger picture vision that comes to my mind, right? So we see that the built world overall is quite underserved in kind of capacity, right? So we don't have the capacity to have a star architect, a star engineer, star designer work on every single building, right? And if you look around most cities, you see the outcome of that, right? We have a lot of cookie cutter homes and buildings in general, right? And I think what we need to do in the built world is really up-level our capacity for excellence in aesthetics, in the design, in the engineering, in the construction, and all that, right? And AI, from my perspective, can provide that capacity, up-leveling humans to do much better, right? And that means that in the future, AI and architects will work very intensely together, very integrated, to produce that higher quality along all those dimensions, sustainability, engineering, design, and all that. So I think what we'll get eventually after this sort of transformation over the next couple of decades is a built world that will be massively upgraded in terms of quality along all these dimensions. And I'm super excited about that future. And I hope you're as excited as I am, because your job will change along the way as well, to again focus on the essence of what you really wanted to do when you studied architecture in the first place.
Thank you, Julian. So we just got some questions flowing into the chat. And I think this is a question towards Julian and Martin again. It's saying, could there be a framework to coordinate efforts and collaboration between Nemetschek and clients actively investing in developing their own solutions? For example, a strategic exchange to avoid redundancy and identifying synergies. Maybe Martin, you can go first.
Yeah, I hope I absorbed all points of the question, but so this is not a solo play for tech AI. So it is really about having the conversation and the dialogue with our user bases, those whose life will be impacted, and that extend that it not only to architects like Pierre, but also their customers. So who will use the buildings? So how we approach this, we need to make sure they connect the dialogue between all of those. So at the end of the day, and I like to use this as a parallel, that designing a building is very similar to designing a software. I have background in both of those. So and it is about the end users and the end of the day. So those who will occupy these buildings, live this building, they will be able to judge the quality of those. And where AI will help us is actually all the decisions that led to the realization of that building. And I think that was Julian's point in the previous his previous reply. But to find what to optimize, we need to connect all of those dots. So that's actively happening. We, for example, on the Graphisoft have user groups, insider groups. So these are always the heated discussions around, and it's very good and fulfilling to participate in those.
Thank you, Martin. And so we have another very interesting question here. We're asking about intellectual property, speaking of the data and input from the designer, etc. So Julian, who is protecting the data and who is compensating the authors which the data has been used?
Right. So it's very important for us to be very, very transparent on what we do with data, right? And we recently defined a group level AI strategy for our company that applies to Graphisoft and every other company that we have in the portfolio. And the idea here is really that we separate data into, let's say, 3 layers, right? So the first layer is sort of the generic foundation models. If we now step into the generative AI space, right? Think about OpenAI and Google and the others that provide those foundation models, right? These will be sort of providing the general intelligence, the reasoning capabilities, and all that. And Google, Microsoft, OpenAI, and so forth, they train that on the general corpus of the internet, right? To publicly available sources, and potentially even through content partnerships in the future, right? But it's sort of like that foundation level. Then we have some sort of Nemetschek intelligence layer sitting on top of that provides additional, training and fine-tuning towards the industry knowledge, right? So this is about bringing in our own expertise, not our customers' data, but really our own expertise in terms of what it takes to do design, do construction, do building management and all that into an AI model and fine-tune it in a way so that it works for the industry, right? So that's also not customer data. And then sitting on top of that, we have potentially a customer layer that is specific to individual customers, right? And imagine you get like a Nemetschek AI software stack in the future where the first 2 layers are providing, the general reasoning capabilities plus the industry knowledge from Nemetschek Group, but then one adapter layer on top of that is specific to your company, your designs and all that, right? And we isolate these 3 layers from each other so your data remains your property, right? And we keep that in your environment, right? And separate that from everything else, from ourselves and our other customers, of course, right? That's of the approach that we're taking with IP and make sure that we separate this very, very clearly.
Thank you, Julian. So we're reaching to the end of the webinar this time, and thank you very much to our speaker, Pierre, Martin, and Julian, to share with us their vision and their views on AI and how do we adopt AI from the design perspective and the software industry perspective. And so thank you everyone for attending this webinar as well. So please don't remember to follow us on Instagram. I see that there are more questions flowing in the chat, and so we'll be answering them on our Instagram, and where you will also see the next webinar coming. So thank you very much, and then the recording will be online, and you will be receiving an email from me very soon to ask for like a survey and what do you think of our webinar to see how do we improve the next time. Okay, so thank you very much again, and hope you guys have a good day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.